Hey guys, Joshua Austin back here with the BCNet Equip team. In this part, little short video, I want to share a little bit about the logistics of our follow-up system here at West Point. You might, certainly have to tweak it to your context and what works best for you guys. Ours might look a little rigid, a little structured, but I don't know. It seems to be really beneficial, and I think it works in multiple contexts. And so, but you'll have to be the judge of that. But what I would say is how we do it is we create. The first step is to create a Google form. I mentioned in a previous video that I think it's super important to collect information digitally. Handwriting, not only is it hard to decipher, but then it takes hours and hours and hours to take all of that data, and you're already going to probably you really will need to put it into a spreadsheet so you can store it and keep it more organized and filter based on their answers, and it just takes so much time to put that digitally and not get things hard to read. And so whenever possible, I always think a digital follow-up info form, connect card, whatever you call it, is always the way to go. So first I want to walk through our form and then share a little bit about our process and how we do it. Our Google form, they scan the QR code and it sends them to our form. It's something we want to be short and concise that they can fill out. Obviously there's autofill a lot of times on their phone, so it takes them even less time. But their first question is just Mr. Miss, so we know if it's male or female. We find that little detail, Miss or Mr., to be better than putting male, female, and getting into identity and stuff. So that just works for us. But first missed, and then last name, first name. Of course, that's military, so you do first and last name. Preferred name, I think I mentioned in the first video, but preferred name is actually important because a lot of our students go by middle name or nickname or something else, and so it's important to ask that preferred name. Because I'm Joshua, and I think everyone assumes I go by Josh, but I actually prefer Joshua. Not a big deal, but I know people. I appreciate it when people know that, and so putting that there. The next question on our Google form is where are you from, and it's just a drop-down box with all 50 states, and then other, so they can write in where they're from. This might not be as important of information for you, but for us, it's pretty helpful. Our ministry, we had, I think last year, 44 states represented, as we have students from literally every state in the U.S. and every territory that get appointments to West Point. But it's helpful for us to know where they're coming from, and so we collect that information. Their affiliation, for us it's cadet, or it's a cadet candidate, which is at our prep school, or faculty. For you might say student or post-grad, undergrad, whatever it is, whatever information is best there for you. And then we always ask the class. It's a big part of the West Point culture. Obviously, maybe not you, but class of 25, 26, 27, 28. And then information that might be particular if they're sorority, club, some kind of other affiliation. For us, it's their company at West Point, so what company you're in. And then we always want to get the email. And so specifically, we're asking for their school email. So we have email, then we have at westpoint.edu. So they just plug in that first part. So we make sure we have that information. Phone number, that question is optional, but the phone number is on there. Birth date, another optional question. And then the last section is really important for us. It's I am interested in. And I am interested in, there's 10 boxes they can check. They can check as many as they want. But this is really the heart of the follow-up process, is based on what specific things they request information for. The first thing is they can check a box for getting coffee / smoothie with a BCM leader, one of our staff or one of the cadet leaders. The second one is to learn more about what Christians believe, and so that helps us know kind of where that student is and kind of what they're interested in, and or where they may be in their walk. The next one is discipleship groups. Maybe you have small groups after that. We don't have that. Local church or chapel time. For us, it's a serve team on Tuesday nights, help them with food or welcome. You can find out about our praise team, missions with local, national, international, find out about our leadership team or our Friday lunch Bible study, or other. They can fill in something if there's something specific. So they can check as many of those boxes as they want. And that's really important for helping us customize and make that follow-up personal to them. And so that's what our Google form looks like. I'll share a little step-by-step of how to create a Google form if you're not as familiar with it. And I'll share all that content I just mentioned out. Obviously, it's a lot easier to see that visually. But that's the first step, is creating that Google form. The next thing would be to create a QR code. If you're not familiar with that, in Google Forms, you can get a share link. You can just copy and paste that link into, if you just Google QR code generator, there's tons of free QR code generators. So you just copy and paste that link in there, and it'll create you a little JPEG of a QR code. And for us, that's huge. Obviously, you want to know a little bit more about how well the cell service is on where you're going to be. But even now, they can actually take a picture of it and scan it later. Obviously not ideal, but that is an option. But that QR code is really helpful for us. Also, just to take that shareable link and share it in your GroupMe or on your Facebook page or your email distro, create a hyperlink or share on social media, weekly announcements, on your slides, to have that QR code there. Print it out on your welcome table, or if you're doing like an orientation tabling, have that QR code printed so they can just scan it right there. A lot of times maybe we'll have a little sign-up sheet where they can just put their first last name, and then we'll send them the info form. But when all possible, it's great if they just scan that QR code and fill it out. It maybe seem like an obstacle, or it can be challenging logistically, but it hasn't been for us. I mean, we had our QR code scanned and filled out, completed 283 times last year, and just a lot of people at a lot of events that scan that, and it's super helpful follow-up. The next step would be organizing that information, all that content, into the Google Sheets. If you aren't familiar with Google Forms, there's multiple tabs. As the admin, you can see your questions that you created. The next tab is your responses. Next is your settings. If you go to the responses, there's a link at the top where you can hit link to sheets. If you click that, it'll actually create for you a spreadsheet in Google Docs. And that there way you'll have it in a spreadsheet like Excel. And then I always make a copy of it, that whatever that tab is, the original, I always make a copy of it. And there I can move things around and organize things, and I can sort it by class or by company, or that's where I can create little tabs, and based on what they were specifically interested in, I can sort it out very easily, so I can see all that information and see what that specific person wanted to do. This is really helpful because this is what we use to go in, because in that separate link or little tab that we create, we have a column with who is following up with that specific person. So it's myself or students. So I share this Google sheet with cadets that are in charge of follow-up, and so they can put their name there if they're following up with that person, or I'll put it there, the last contact. It can just make it so you don't have a bunch of assumptions. Everyone assumes, Josh followed up with them, or that person followed up with them. You can know for sure by having a system with a spreadsheet that can be really helpful to organize that content and make it really clear, and have that follow-up system in place. And then I already said in my last video, but then I would create just a customizable email where you write out an email that says, welcome. I always send them to my GroupMe. Hey, click on this, you'll be added to our GroupMe. That's a great thing that we use to keep announcements and things in the loop, whatever other information. And then I just answer, I have it written out, the answer to all 10 of those things. If they check this box, this is the answer. If they check small groups, D groups, and I have all that written out in an email. And then based on what that student actually asked, I just go through and delete whatever they didn't ask for, and then I send that off to them with their preferred name, and then whatever they checked, just make that email customizable for them and their specific, and we try to get that out within 48 hours. to each student. And then, as I mentioned, be persistent. Don't just assume if there's not a first response that means they're disinterested. It probably just means they're busy. That's definitely the case here at West Point. Is they're just super busy and getting pulled in so many directions. And I've made the mistake before when I don't hear from somebody the first time, or sometimes even the second time, like, oh, okay, they didn't connect, or they didn't enjoy coming, or whatever it was, and it just wasn't true. They just had something going on, or were sick, or whatever it was. And so being persistent and intentional in that follow-up is super important. So that's a little bit about our system and process. We have a little sign-in sheet based on whoever's filled out that info form. We actually produce a little sheet that has their name and info, a little bit of their info, birthdays and stuff like that. And when our cadets actually arrive to every meeting, they just walk up to that spreadsheet before they have food, and they just check off their name. And so we tell them, hey, if you don't see your name on that spreadsheet, it just means you haven't filled our info form. If you just scan that QR code on the first page and fill that out, and it keeps pushing students to do that and to make that follow up. And then during our announcements, at the beginning of our worship, we always have that QR code on the screen that says, hey, we'd love to get to follow up with you and get to know you and to connect with you. We're not going to just spam you. We really want to find out a lot about you personally and share a little bit about us. And so if you scan that QR code, it's the best way for us to follow up with you and help you get connected with community. And that's a big need. Students need community. That's definitely a huge felt need across our country, regardless if you're in a massive school or commuter school or a federal academy like me. The students are hungry for community, and I think the follow-up process is a big part of helping them get connected with that community. Maybe the first reason they're coming is for free food or for some girl or whatever it is, but the hope is through intentional follow-up to have them stay for the right reasons and to hear the transforming message of the gospel. And so please reach out to me if anything was confusing. Again, I'll provide some printed out information with some step-by-step things if you're not as familiar with Google Forms or the QR codes or that system, and not saying that you have to by any means change everything that you're doing. You find out how to contextualize this best for your context. But I just couldn't stress enough the importance of having a clear, intentional follow-up system every single week of the semester, every single week of the year. We have new students because of our follow-up system. We see new students fill that info form every single week of the year, and I'm not exaggerating that. And even our last meeting, we had 3 first-time guests, and we were able to get their information and follow up with them. And by God's grace, we got to baptize 18 cadets last year through what the Holy Spirit and the work of the Lord is doing. And know that I am praying for you in your context, and just so thankful for your faithfulness and your willingness to make disciples in the most strategic places in our country, our college campuses. God bless you. Thanks so much for your time, and hope to see you soon.